Misha, take off your blindfold. Take it off. Yes, take off your blindfold.
For watching. Hey, it's Misha Danielle here, and today I'm going to do a review on the most talked about movie right now, which is Bird Box. It is currently being streamed on Netflix. So far, it has been streamed by 45 million people right now, I've heard. So it is a pretty big deal. I will say that I heard so much about this movie before watching it, and I've heard, you know, good things, bad things, questionable things. And if you're like me, I don't form opinions unless I see something myself. So what I did, I made time on Christmas Eve, and I decided to view the movie myself so I can get my own perspective, and I'm so glad I did. So if you haven't watched this movie just yet, I urge you to go out and watch it. Maybe I'll even give you my Netflix password if you don't have it. You never know. But let's just get right into the movie. I believe that when I began watching the movie, right away I was so captivated by the main character, Mallory, which is played by Sandra Bullock. Her strength and the tone of her voice, it really caught my attention when she was talking to her children. I believe the scene when she was telling them, no matter what, do not take off your blindfold. If you do, you're going to die. And when I heard her say that and I watched her as she spoke to her children, I was like, whoa, what kind of movie is this? This is about to be one of those hold on tight type of movies, and I was so excited about it. So from that scene on, I did not take my eye off this movie whatsoever. I will say that Sandra did an amazing job playing the role of Mallory. She possessed a lot of strength, as I mentioned before, and I believe when the movie takes you 5 years prior to her and her children being on the river, you don't see her being so strong. She's an artist who's pregnant, and she really isn't strong at all. She's got this, as her painting is, like a disconnect. She doesn't really want to be pregnant. She doesn't have life figured out. It seems like she doesn't really care to have life figured out, although her sister urges her to get it together. Even her doctor gives her a speech like, it's okay to say you're pregnant. You're going to have a baby whether you like it or not. She even, you know, urges her to consider adoption. So to see her 5 years prior to being on the river and being necessarily weak, it was amazing to see her 5 years later being so strong. And I believe that's what pulled me, and I'm sure other people right in. Alongside Sandra Bullock's character, Mallory was another strong character. It was the role of Tom, played by Trevante Rhodes. And not only did he provide eye candy, because so many people are talking about him, but he also provided strength as well. I believe the two of them, they did really great on camera. You could tell they had a bond. The chemistry was great. And, you know, it just proves that no matter what you go through, being strong is definitely the way to be. There was a lot of hidden messages in this movie. I would say that a lot of the things in this movie were kind of unknown, and that could either be good or bad depending on what you think about it. I will say that one of the things unknown was we don't see this force, or some people are calling it a monster, and it's really interesting that we don't see it, but we know it's coming due to the sounds and due to the birds flocking and kind of panicking, letting you know that its presence is nearby and it's on its way. And it's very interesting that no matter what, we don't see it. And you wonder, what does this thing look like? I mean, is this something large? Is it something seen? Or is it only something if you look directly at it, you notice? Because it's one of those things that if you look at it, you see your greatest fear. And then when you see your greatest fear, it leads you to kill yourself. And another thing that we don't see is people's greatest fears. We do know that when they look at it and their eyes kind of do like this, that we don't know what their fear is. And I think that's kind of nice. It's as if it's led us to kind of use our own imaginations, but it can get frustrating if you're wondering, what are they looking at? What are they seeing? And then another thing that pointed out to me was one of the characters, I believe his name was Gary. He was able to look at this thing, but he did not die. He didn't you know, get spazzed out or anything. He was able to look at everything and you know, open the blinds and force other people to look at this thing. He even, like, it looks like he's drawn pictures of it, and every picture is different. So it's like the only thing that we can get close to actually seeing an image is when he looks at it. Another thing that I've noticed too is that some people, they did not see this thing. They didn't have to be blindfolded. They could go out like him and the others that approached Tom at the end of the film. And I'm wondering, does it mean that mental ill people are exempt from that? That's one thing that gets you thinking, like only mentally ill people or disturbed people are unable to see this force or monster perhaps. But that was very interesting too. Also, the film, a lot of people have said that Bird Box is one of those movies where it exposes you to deeper meaning. And so even a surprise actor, which was a shocker too, was to see Machine Gun Kelly, or MJK, in the film playing the role of Felix. And even he had a quote about it when interviewed, and I actually wrote it down too. He stated that Bird Box was a metaphor for what's going on in the real world. Don't take off your blindfold and become like all the ugliness around us. And when I read that, I was like, whoa, that's very interesting, because when you're blindfolded, you're able to navigate even though you can't see. You notice that Mallory and the kids, and Tom as well, and other characters, when they were out, they had to kind of feel their surroundings. And that was very deep. Like, maybe we should start looking, or maybe we shouldn't. We should just be us, because once we take that blindfold off, we can become like the world. So I thought that was very deep as well. But would I urge you guys to see the movie? Yes, I would. I think it's a very good film. It's different because they flip back and forth. I know for some people, when it shows you 5 years prior, 5 years later, it kind of bounces around, but I believe it was necessary, because you need to know, how did someone become so strong? What was she experiencing before? It leads you on to showing the beginning of the phenomenon. And I really think that's interesting. When it first hits the US, you see her and her sister leaving the hospital and people frantically running her out in the streets. So I believe that's necessary. If it had started off with them at the house and they're running, it wouldn't have that same effect. I really appreciate that. I know some, they might have been a little annoyed by that, but it was okay for me. Bird Box is definitely a movie where, although it's considered horror or thriller, it's captivating in every sense, because although, like I mentioned before, we cannot see this thing or force, it leads you to think, well, what caused this and what do people see? And I really think that's very interesting for the film. But I would say that Mallory was very heroic. I would say that it just shows that only the strong people are the ones that truly navigate, and she was very strong, and she taught those children to be strong. Let's talk about my favorite part of the film. It can also be a bit of a spoiler, so if you haven't seen it yet, you might want to stop right here and kind of fast forward this video. But my favorite part of the movie was when Mallory and girl and boy arrived to the school for the blind. It was just like, wow, you know, at first you didn't know if that door was going to open in time, because you heard those birds and you knew that force was very, very close in proximity. But when they finally were allowed to come in, and she goes out into the garden and she sees her doctor 5 years prior, and she asks what are their names, and they say girl and boy, and then Mallory decides to name them, and she looks over here and she's like, your name is Emily, and she looks to her boy, your name is Tom. And I just, my heart was just, it was just so wonderful. Like, she named those children after just two wonderful people, and that was just, it was just perfect. Like, she finally had it figured out. She was gonna be a strong mother to those children. She knew there wasn't any disconnect. She understood what was going on. And although the movie takes off and it doesn't have, you know, normally horror movies, they have a bad ending, but this one, it kind of leaves you to the unknown. You know that they're safe. You know they're amongst other people who made it, as well as blind people who weren't affected by the force, obviously, because they could not see. But it leads you to really think about what happens next. It leads you to wonder, well, I guess they're gonna be okay, because Mallory has it all figured out. Another thing, spoiler alert, is when Tom kills himself. Although he almost made it, a lot of people are saying, well, at least he died with dignity. Like, he stood up for Mallory and the children, and himself too, when those people approached him. And yes, he did end up seeing the force, but he died with dignity and strength as well. This movie was definitely an eye-opener. I've actually seen it twice because I thought it was just good. I noticed the second time I saw it, I had a different perspective. There were things in the movie that I didn't see the first time that I definitely saw the second time, and I'm like, wow. I almost want to read the book. I think I actually will. I do know that some things in the book were not obviously seen in the film. I have heard that the ending in the book is a little different than the ending in the movie, and that's what comes with it sometimes. But it was a very, very good movie. Like I've said, people have their opinions about it. People say good things, bad things, but that's with every movie. And do I think that this movie could have made it in the theaters? Yes, I do. I would give this movie like a 4 out of 5. I won't say it's perfect, but it was captivating. It's one of those movies where you have to sit and watch and concentrate, because if you miss something, you're gonna not figure it out. And I love movies that immediately grab my attention. It keeps me guessing. It was an awesome experience to watch this movie, even the second time around. So I highly suggest that if you haven't already seen Bird Box, you should go ahead and view it on streamed only on Netflix. So if you don't know anybody with Netflix, find somebody. I mean, hit me up for my password, guys. You can do that. I just made reply, but I would highly recommend it so you can see it for yourself. You've got all these memes out now about it, and you just need to know, because the memes are absolutely funny, but you really won't get it unless you've seen the movie. So with that being said, thanks so much for watching. If you would like more reviews like this, please comment down below. Also, let me know what you thought about the movie. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Let me know down below in the comments. And be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.